So I think we're all pretty familiar with the Dreamcast at this point. There's tons of videos everywhere about how much people love this system, specifically for some of the stuff they tried to innovate at the time with the modem on the side that came with it, which was very weird at the time. And then, of course, the VMU with the memory card, VGA graphics, where it was very clean looking compared to other stuff at the time with the PS1 and Nintendo 64. It was a cool system. So naturally, there's still a lot of people playing Dreamcast games online. You can play them online without too much issue. There's a lot of different ways you can configure your setup, whether you want to use an actual Raspberry Pi to hook you up or if you just have a broadband modem. There's a ton of different ways to get connected, and there's actually a lot of people still playing. So when I saw that there was an emulator for the Dreamcast, which I'm sure people are using their legitimate discs, right? They're not downloading stuff from the internet to pirate old games that you technically can't really buy from Sega anymore, I guess. So I guess it doesn't really matter too much. But of course, there are emulators to play Dreamcast games, and there's one that's part of RetroArch that now has online play enabled. And when I saw that, I thought, wow, that's a really cool idea, and apparently it works fairly well. There's actually a full video that you're seeing here where someone's actually testing it and showing it off and talking a bit about it, and that's actually LibRetro showing you there. And this emulator is called Reicast Core, and it's part of RetroArch. Now has online multiplayer, so it will leverage DreamcastLive.net, which means that you can play against a ton of other people, even if the original servers are down. You just have to follow some of the steps. But as you're about to see here in the notes, you don't actually need to set up IP addresses, port forwarding, or anything like that. It's a zero configuration multiplayer support, so it's fairly easy. Now, there is a little bit of work to do, but the fact that it pretty much works with everything, and you can then connect to DreamcastLive.net and start playing Phantasy Star or Quake Arena, I guess. There's a lot of stuff you can play. Toy Soldiers, I think, was another one that a lot of people played back in the day. This is a really cool thing to see, and now that it's kind of been developed, and a lot of emulators are just open source code, I assume other emulators that maybe people like more will see this and maybe play around with it and get it to work there as well. But basically, this is just adding fuel to the fire for the Dreamcast online community, because now you don't technically need to have a Dreamcast to play online. Now, I was trying to read through a lot of the notes and double check everything, but it sounds like it's being implied that you can technically play on the servers against other Dreamcast consoles, I guess. It's kind of interesting to see that. I haven't tried it that myself, but I'm sure other people will at this point to see if all of that works out. But this is really neat, and I'm curious what you guys think about this down below. Something else that's really cool when I was thinking about this, if we're to this point with emulators where, of course, these plug-and-play systems that come out leverage emulators to work. We all know that. The NES, the SNES, the AT games, the AT games, Genesis one that's terrible, and we know it's terrible because the emulation's bad, all use emulators. The PS1 Classic will as well. So if there ever is a Dreamcast Classic in the future at any time, which I'm sure as technology continues to improve, yeah, we'll probably get there eventually. The fact that we're having a PS1 Classic so soon after the NES Classic launched, like a few years, yeah, I do think we'll eventually get to that present time where a Dreamcast Mini is available. And I would like to see Sega really go the distance with it and slap an Ethernet port on there and say, guys, I know the at-game stuff was terrible, but we fixed our emulation process. This new Genesis Mini that we released last year works great, which I guess we'll find out next year since they delayed it. This is like in 2020 or 2021. Here's the Dreamcast Mini. It has a port on the side. Phantasy Star is loaded up on it. Nothing else. I'm just kidding. Although some people would probably be like, it's a Phantasy Star machine. I'm in, for 60 bucks. But if they had a bunch of stuff on there, they had a back office menu and everything. You could connect it. It had like the calendar system in there and stuff. Man, that would be really cool if there was a way to plug in an Ethernet port or even have Wi-Fi built in to where you could go online with these Dreamcast games that technically are enabled and play against other people. Now, the server thing might be an issue, and maybe that's why they would shy away from it. But at the very least, at least on the side of it, have a cutout or just have like a little imprint of where your modem was, because that was such a defining factor to the point where people are still playing your games online because of this big introduction into online gaming during the 56K era. Thanks guys for watching. I hope this was interesting to you about the emulator. I thought it was cool to see this, kind of some neat emulator, modern/retro news, and technically you can go out and download the emulator and try some games out or just see how it runs on your computer if you like. Guys, make sure you give this video a like if you like it, dislike it if not, and get subscribed for all retro current gaming news. And we're gonna have some teardowns coming up too, so you don't want to miss a few of these that are coming up. Guys, I'll see you in the next video.